In the last part of 2013, we reviewed the current homework practices at Stella Maris and developed a proposal for consideration of the staff and the school board. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a clear picture of the traditional homework practices at Stella Maris. You'll be informed of current research relating to the best homework practice and be introduced to a proposed model for future homework practice at Stella Maris. By the end of this session, you'll have knowledge of the positives and negatives of Stella Maris' current homework practice in order to understand the need for the current practices to be reviewed. You'll understand the research that supports the use of purposeful homework as an effective learning tool. And you'll have a clear idea of the types of tasks that may be set for homework. So we reviewed our practices by surveying 111 parents, 30 staff, and 567 students. And looking at the data that we collected, we are now about to show you a snapshot of that and the research, and also a proposed model. After looking at all of the research and our data collected from the surveys, there were three clear standout areas. After-school commitments are an issue, the independent completion of the homework, and also the purpose of the homework. Let's have a look at after-school commitments and how that affects parents at our school. The students at our school, 84% of them have other stuff to do of an afternoon. Some of them have one thing, some of them have more than one thing. They're the things like sport practices, drama, dance, speech, pathology, all those kind of after-school commitments that need to happen outside of school hours. In a class of 30, that's 25 kids have those after-school commitments. The research shows us that homework can have a lot of negative effects at home. Conflict within the family, stress, frustration, and a general reduction in the interest of learning. There's been a lot of investigation into homework, but there's been little evidence that it's actually beneficial for students in primary school. John Hattie's effect size research on homework has an effect size of 0.29, so it's a very low effect on students' growth. So what we did is we formed some questions to help guide the future models of our homework at Stella Maris. So for after-school commitments, we looked at how can homework be designed so that it more closely matches the home life of today's family. The next section was independent completion of homework. So 54% of our students experience some kind of confusion when sitting down to do their homework. That can range from not knowing what the question is actually asking of them, when it's due, maybe they forgot to bring stuff home, or some sort of disorganisation, a range of different frustrations for them. So in a class of 30, that's 16 students are experiencing that frustration. As well as that, 40% of the students are needing help from parents in order to complete the homework. So that can be as high as them completing the work for their child, right down to reading things that they don't understand and pointing them in the right direction. But without that support, the students would not be able to complete it on their own, 40%. And what we're seeing is, as a result of these frustrations, 30% of a class is not handing in their homework. So having a look at some research now on independence. Kralovic and Buell say that it's a bit of a black hole when we give homework to students to take home, because we don't know much about what happens at home and how that work was completed. So it could have been a really busy afternoon at home, or there was some other kind of stress going on, or the student was tired, or a whole bunch of different things that we've got no knowledge or control over. So when the student, even if they do bring the homework back to school, it has very little use for the teachers, because they're not really sure how the student or who completed that homework. So what we need to try and do is make it so that homework has a little bit more use for teachers in planning for their next teaching. This piece says that it's not very beneficial for primary school. It's a little bit beneficial for junior high, and it starts to get more reasonably beneficial for high school students. Another point they make is parents being over-controlling and interfering in their students' homework. That's been pretty clearly not beneficial. But what is beneficial is when parents support the autonomy of the child, and rather than interfering and trying to take over the homework, they provide the guidance and assistance. We should be designing homework so that students have a great chance of actually completing it. If we can get them to complete it with high success rates, they'll be more engaged in the work, and we need to make it challenging enough also. And Hattie's effect size for middle school with some parent involvement is 0.36, which is not too bad. But once you get moderate to extensive parent involvement, that effect size drops to 0.13. So our question for independence is, what homework can we provide that is challenging to students yet able to be completed successfully and with independence? Alright, the next section is purpose of homework. This is an important section because it's at the base of what we do at schools. So the classroom and learning and teaching cycle is what we've had a look at here. So it starts with the classroom learning and all the activities that happen on a day-to-day basis in a classroom. Now from that, what normally happens in our traditional model is the teachers will set homework to revisit the work that has gone on during the day or during the week. So the homework goes home, the students complete the worksheet. It's usually a A4 printed sheet that goes home and needs to be completed. If the student actually completes it, they hand in the homework sheet, and then once the teacher gets it on their desk, these are the kinds of things that happen once that's been handed in. The teachers will give a tick or a cross on the sheet. They might say a short verbal feedback to the students, such as good work, or thanks for that, or great job, or looks messy. And then 30% of teachers will also write a very short written comment in the same way as the verbal one. None of these feedback models are very effective for letting students know where they're at now and how they're going to get to the next place that they've got to get to in their learning. And so because of that, that's kind of where this learning and teaching cycle stops in regards to homework. As we have 53% of teachers using that homework to inform their next teaching. Now that's a lot of teachers not using it to inform, which means a lot of students not receiving informed teaching from their homework. And in our school last year, that's 392 students. So looking at the research for the purpose of homework, teachers should only be assigning homework when they can justify that it's beneficial. We should be, as a school, promoting a culture of excellence by providing challenging, stimulating learning experiences. And in countries that have the highest scoring achievement test scores, like Japan, Denmark, and the Czech Republic, they tend to be the countries that assign little homework. It appears as though the more homework a nation sets, the poorer the students' results on achievement tests are. We should include in our homework new content, practicing a skill or process that they can do independently. So not just the revisiting work that's already been done, but expanding that out to preparing students for new content that's coming up, pre-teaching, if you will. And where you have high quality homework, you will see a higher chance that the students will be motivated to put in more effort. And effort is associated with achievement and achievement gains. So looking forward now to a proposed model, looking back at our learning and teaching cycle, it will begin in the classroom learning practices that we do on a day-to-day basis. And during those sessions, students will set goals. They could be things that they need to work a little bit more on, or maybe it's things that they want to extend. It could be a range of different goals that they set for themselves. The homework that we've set then is for preparation of the next lesson, or to challenge themselves or to reach those goals. And the homework can be a range of different things. So trying to move away from the printed worksheets. It could be videos, it could be look up a newspaper article, read a part of a book. Our spelling will continue to be a core part of our homework, as will our times tables and basic facts, as well as our reading, reading to your student, reading with the child and getting them to read to you. So those things will stay in place, but we're looking at expanding it to a wider range of tools that are available to our 21st century learners. So the students watch a lesson or read or complete some sort of task, and the idea of that is that it's a trigger for a conversation or dialogue that happens at the next lesson. So that could be the next lesson for that subject, or it might be the next week or the next day. It's flexible in that way, but the main idea is that doing that homework task starts a conversation in the classroom. Now, throughout that conversation, the teacher will get an idea of what each student is at, whether they understand the concept or they have the language associated with that concept, and it will help them get a much clearer picture of each student's learning needs. So the teacher might say, all right, who watched that video last night on 3D shapes? Oh, did you see that shape? It had a point on the top. What was that called? Yeah, that's right. Did anyone else see a shape that was interesting? And so the conversation starts, and even students that are usually not involved in those kinds of learning activities, they will have the opportunity to become more involved, or at the very least they'll see the interactions and hear the interactions between learners and teacher, and will start to internalise how those kinds of problem-solving processes take place, which then should encourage them to take part in it in the future. Also, if the homework was not able to be completed that night due to all of the outside influences that in our home lives that we talked about before, then there'll be opportunities, because the tasks are relatively short and easily accessed, opportunities for the students to watch it at school or do the task at school before that lesson occurs. And at the very worst case, if they don't get that opportunity, they'll still be guided into that conversation through the leading questions and interactions between other students. So completing the homework task, although we wouldn't say it's not vital that you complete it, if there is circumstances where the homework can't be done, then there's other ways around that. And so once we've had that kind of conversation, that dialogue will help the teacher and inform them on what they should be doing in their next classroom activities. And then that begins the learning cycle again. James Nottingham says that if we can jointly accomplish tasks together, then that will help the students to gradually internalise that so that they can learn how to independently solve those problems. Hattie's effect size for classroom discussion is huge, 0.82, more than double what we'd expect for a year's worth of learning. And so the question for the purpose of homework is how can we use homework to create engaging dialogue that will enhance daily learning and teaching and contribute to the learning cycle. So our three questions were for after-school commitments: how can homework be designed so that it more closely matches the home life of today's family? For independence, what homework can we provide that is challenging to students yet able to be completed successfully and with independence? And for the purpose of homework, how can we use homework to create engaging dialogue that will enhance daily learning and teaching and contribute to the learning cycle? So they're the three questions that we used to move forward with our proposed model. So looking at some ideas for what homework may actually look like when sent home. Teachers recently, at the start of 2014, were asked to view the same presentation you're watching now, and from that we had a bit of a brainstorming session, and I got them to put on sticky notes some of the ideas of things that they might send home based on their current curriculum that they're teaching at the moment in classrooms. This is some of the ideas they came up with. So there's some things like have a look at maps of Australia and see if you can see landforms, populations and things like that. So that conversation would happen in class and people could compare maps, and it would really get the language of that geography lesson up and running. Give teachers a great idea who knows the language, who knows what landforms are and that sort of thing. Another one, find an example of doubles outside of school. That's a really simple task that they would be able to see things in the fridge, in the cupboard, or on their way home in the car even. And they wouldn't necessarily need to write that or anything. They would just have to come to school prepared to talk about it. This one I know actually happened in the classroom the day after we had this discussion. Find a good resource that explains one of these: inertia, force, motion, or mass. And the students came the next day, and from the teachers' reports, the students were very motivated to share their YouTube, or to share their newspaper article or magazine that they got from a science book, or any other range of things that they found on those topics. They wanted to share it and they wanted to talk about it. Have a look here at another one. Find and watch a video describing how light travels. Share your favourite genre of music. Find an article about another religion. Find some Italian foods in your pantry. So that's incorporating the languages. There's ones that are musical as well there. So it can really extend right out to all areas of the curriculum. Find things that cost $100. Find some photos of you and create a timeline. I like this one. Time or research different routes for getting home. So these are the kinds of tasks that in a lot of cases, due to the availability of items like smartphones and iPads and things like that, students can do some of these things in a range of different places. They don't necessarily need to wait till they get home to do it. So if their brother is at swimming training and they've got a smartphone there or an iPad or whatever, they can complete a lot of these tasks just by doing that. So we'll obviously there's more than just things like technology, but looking at these learners, they certainly have access to those tools, as well as books, newspapers, magazines, and all the other kinds of resources that we have always used. So that's our review of homework at Stella Maris, and I thank you for listening to our proposal.